delighted to announce our last and final amazing speaker, Anant Agarwal, the founder and CEO of EDX, or co-founder, and it will give our closing conversation. Ready?
Thank you, Deborah. It's always, in any education leader summit, you see so many familiar faces, and it's just great to, really great to chat with you all. So I have a set of slides. My hope is we can try to find a way to make it more of a conversation. And so what that means is anywhere along the way, if you agree vehemently with anything I say, feel free to ask a question, or if you disagree, do the same thing, or let's see if we can try to do that. We'll also have time at the end. So the focus of this will be, give you a quick review of who we are and what we do, and then talk about what the future might look like, and what we're already seeing in terms of some of the crazy things happening there in education because of technology. But it's always good to start with how we see the world today. Okay, I think that there'd be very little disagreement that conversations about the future of work very quickly turn into conversations about the future of learning. It takes 30 seconds and then people jump into it, and there's many different kinds of lead-ins to it. Now, one lead-in is this one. So this is the year 2030, and the different predictions of what fraction of today's jobs will still be around by 2030 because of automation and AI and all of that stuff. And predictions range from 30% to 70%, and so a good average number is 1 in 2 jobs will be gone by 2030. And you can see this happening all around you. Every field is being completely transformed by digital, whether it is the whole transportation industry, or the hospitality industry, or the entertainment industry, the healthcare industry. I was in India a couple of weeks ago speaking with Devi Shetty, and he's a big-time cardiologist and has incredible heart centers all over the country. And he was telling me that they've launched a company called Kaizale. Okay, and I'll ask you what Kaizale means in Konkani, which is a dialect in India, where essentially what that will do is with a cell phone, you look into it, and you answer a few questions, and it'll tell you what's wrong with you. Essentially, it's AI, masquerading as a doctor. And so, and he believes that within 5 to 10 years, pretty much all first-level diagnoses anywhere in the world will be done by AI. And so now my question to you, what do you think the company name is Kaizale? So I don't see too many Konkani folks in the audience. So does anybody know what Kaizale means? You should know. So if you speak Marathi or you speak Konkani, you should know this. So Kaizale means what happened. It's what happened in Marathi or Konkani. And so you can imagine this company called Kaizale that is, people are going to be able to with the low-cost mobile thing, boom. And this is a really, big-time doctor who is predicting that. The point is that everything is changing in front of us. And what this means is that, as educators, so we are here at the Sandberg Center at MIT, and as education institutions, we all have to think about what does this mean for education? Okay, if 1 in 2 jobs are going to be gone, okay, so look at each other. 1 in 2 of you will not have a job by 2030, right? Just think about that. Clearly, they have to do something. And what this means is that we are going to have a planet-scale reskilling problem on our hands. I mean, half the people cannot be without jobs, and so there's a moral imperative for all of us to see how do we reskill a planet. So this is planet-scale reskilling, and frankly, I don't see any way in which we can even dream of doing it that doesn't rely on technology. Okay, you heard the adage, set a thief to catch a thief. So if technology is causing all these problems, the only chance we have of solving the problem is to use technology to rely on digital education to solve the upskilling problem. So that brings us to edX. edX is a nonprofit. learning platform founded by Harvard and MIT, our model is that we're a platform company. And like platform companies, we partner with institutions. Many of you are here, MIT, Harvard, ASU's here, and a number of other partners around the world that offer content, of variety of content and courses on edX. And we have learners all over the world that come and take these courses. It's a two-sided network model. And we're offering these programs to learners all over the world. And in doing so, edX is forming the bridge, helping our partner institutions form a bridge between traditional education and the modern future workplace. Okay, so we see ourselves at that bridge, working with universities to see how can universities extend themselves and reach the corporate workplace in just massive scale, in a massive scalable manner. We have achieved scale, even though we think of ourselves as a small non-profit in the Kendall Square area of Cambridge, we've grown to 20 million global learners from every single country in the world with 2,400 courses on our platform and 140 institutional partners. Just to give you a sense of what digital technology can do, I won't go into a big song and dance about what is possible in education, but let me just give you one quick little idea. So we are bringing big data and neuroscience to tackle this very problem of education, okay? And digital will let us do that. So let me give you this example. So what we do is, a lot of neuroscience has shown us that active learning is a good idea. So active learning, one form of active learning is when learners are learning, you just don't lecture at them. You have short videos and you provide interactive exercises. So maybe 5 or 10-minute lectures or videos, and then you have some exercise or either a discussion or some activity where they're applying their knowledge. Okay, so that kind of interleaved learning where you're watching a video and then doing some exercise is called active learning. All right? And so it has also been variously, aspects of it has been variously called interpolated testing. So here's some remarkable data from Okana, Gabrieli, and others at the Mitely Center and the Brain and Cognitive Science Center at MIT. So they did a study with active learning for corporate learners. Okay, we're talking about the workplace and so on, corporate learners. And what you see in this graph is, if you show people videos alone, you get certain learning outcomes. You show people videos interleaved with, interpolated with testing, so interleaving of small amount of testing with the videos, you can see that the learning outcomes are significantly better. And in their case, they did a sample study with corporate learners. Now, they didn't stop at that. So that said that learning outcomes are better with active learning, which is the foundational pedagogy behind the edX digital learning platform. They went one step further. So they looked at the EEG data of people who were learning. And you see a little snapshot at the bottom of the slide. If you see a lot of yellows and reds, that in your EEG, that implies the sleep state. You see a lot of blues, that's sort of cool stuff where it means an active mind. So what you see here is that the interpolated testing approach just shows a lot more of the blues and so on. What does this mean? This means that they demonstrated, at least to my knowledge for the first time, that our biology is such, it's human biology, it's biology that active learning is better for learning than other forms. Our brains are wired this way, heck, it's tough. That's how our brains are wired. It's like it's an axiom, it's a fact. Okay, it's like Newton's laws of physics. The brains are wired that way, and boom, therefore you will learn better with active learning, and simply because of how our brains are wired. So just give you a sense of how digital technology can bring this in a broad spread way to all courses. Now, of course, you can do this in the classroom as well. And what is interesting is that we've known about active learning since 1972. It's a landmark paper since 1972. Okay, it's 35 years, and we hardly use active learning in the classroom. But with digital technology, what you can do is you can enforce it in a platform and make sure everybody is following it and create a culture of active learning. As we talk about the future of learning and as we talk about how do we upskill a planet, let me just start with a quick little story and then see how we can solve this problem. So Andrew is one of, he was a employee at United Airlines. And he quickly learned that his business was all project-based, and he needed to boost his skill set in order to be successful. Okay, a classic example of somebody in a business that realizes that, oh my God, my business is moving, and I need to upskill. I don't have all the skills available to move. So what does he do? So I want you to hold that thought. Okay, and see if we can find a way to solve Andrew's problem. The next few minutes, I'd like to dream a little bit with you of what I see as the future of education. Okay? Remember I said the future of work quickly leads to a conversation of the future of education, and how do we solve the problem that Andrew has? He's working, you saw that he has a baby, he lives somewhere. What are the odds that he's going to be able to come to the beautiful sunny campus, balmy outside? What are the odds that he's going to come there to a campus and learn? And no way, the odds are zero. Okay, so how do we solve this problem? So I see two important trends. Okay, one is modular learning, and second is lifelong learning. Okay, I see education headed in this direction. So what is modular learning? Modular learning says that until now we've been used to the only credentials being big degrees, whether it's bachelor's degrees or master's degrees. And the question we discussed briefly 10 minutes ago was again, are we going to be offering degrees online? And we constantly think about this 20th century concept called degrees. And they're big, they're long, they take 1 to 2, 3, 4, sometimes 6 years. But the future is going to be much more modular. People like Andrew are going to be looking for much more modular content, much more modular credentials. They just don't have the time to spend 1, 2, or 3 years to learn something new. Frankly, at universities today, if I go into a university for, say, 6 months into a master's or a bachelor's degree, take a couple of courses, and then leave, what do they call me? Yeah, they call me a dropout. I come to my family, they call me a loser. But heck, I've taken 2 or 3 courses. I know stuff. So why don't we celebrate that? So the future, I think, just as the whole world is becoming bite-sized and digitized and modular, education will go that way as well. So as one example is the MicroMasters credential. MIT pioneered this. And today, edX has 50 MicroMasters. What are MicroMasters? MicroMasters, think of MicroMasters as a modular credential. MicroMasters programs. It's about 25% of a master's degree. So instead of being called a dropout, if you've done 25% of a degree, you get a MicroMasters. Now, isn't that cool? Hey, I have a MicroMasters credential. I'm not a dropout anymore. I have a MicroMasters. It's career-focused, endorsed by employers, attack the skills gap. It's flexible. And the other thing is open admissions. And this is the part where I could spend a whole hour just railing against this, which is, our whole system of education is based on scarcity. And I can only bring in a few students to campus, and so we have admissions. Admission says that, if you have the right SAT scores, the recommendation letters, and all of that stuff, and the great people vouch for you, I might deign to let you in. And, it's not unusual. For example, where I went to school in IIT in Madras, they let in 1 out of 100. 3 weeks ago, I gave a talk at the Indian Institute of Management in Bangalore. You will be stunned. You know how many people they admit? 1 out of, what do you think? You want to guess? Out of how many they get? What is their percentage of admission? What do you think? Pardon?
I guess 1 in 1,000.
1 in 1,000, so you're order of magnitude correct. They admit 1 out of 500 people that apply. It's 0.5%. You're in Cambridge with many, many great institutions here where the admission rates are all in the single digits. But this is crazy. Just imagine, education is a right, but we don't let people in. Just imagine water is a right. So, let's say I'm in India and there's a well in the middle of my village Imagine I have a big thug who stands there and a big line for water and ask the first person, okay, what are your SAT scores? Do you have TOEFL? Do you have a recommendation? Nope, sorry, no water. And I let just 1 in 100 come in to drink some water. Why are you laughing? That's what we do in education today. Isn't it shocking when I say, we do to education today as academicians what would be unthinkable to do for water? But what's the difference? The question is, can we use digital technology to provide access to education to anybody that is willing to learn? Okay, so MicroMasters has no admissions, open admissions. But you got to govern quality. So think of it, there's no admissions at the entry point, but there is admissions at the exit point. So once you learn, there are exams at the end, virtually proctored exams, from solutions like from my friend here, Doug from Software Secure, where you can actually, with proctored assessments and so on, make sure that they know it before you give them the credentials. So you have exit criteria. So everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome, right? So we can turn education completely on its head using this model. And we don't have campus limits, which is why we can do that with digital. Everybody has a mouse and a laptop or a mobile, and you can learn. But you can't do that on campus. And so just imagine, digital can just solve that problem without too much difficulty. It's affordable, so the MicroMasters programs, you can get the credential for about $1,000. But the same credential for a full degree may cost $40,000, $60,000 on campus. So we can reduce the cost, increase access, make it open admissions. What's not to like, right? Digital technology can make a big change. And this is not to say that this will replace campus education. I'll talk about other approaches where campuses are using online and in-person to blend learning. So today we have 50 MicroMasters programs on edX. So, for example, such as this one, a MicroMasters in AI from Columbia. Each MicroMasters is endorsed by a corporation as well. We've also launched, really to be able to connect the traditional model of education to the corporate world, we've also launched edX for Business. And today we've grown to nearly 300 enterprise-level customers that are working with us, helping upskill their employee bases using online learning. So coming back to Andrew. So the good news is today, Andrew, that was before, today Andrew is a project manager at United Airlines. And what did he do? He took a MicroMasters program in project management from the Rochester Institute of Technology. He's got a kid, as I said. He stayed where he was, and he tells us that it was a perfect opportunity for him to advance his career. He did the MicroMasters program in project management from RIT, and then he's now a project manager at United Airlines. This is just one story. And what problems did we solve for him? So a modular credential, he could do it in a few months versus multiple years. Open admissions, he did not have to go hunting for his SAT scores or his outdated TOEFL scores and GRE scores that expire, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. Nothing, it's open admission. You jump in and you start learning. Affordable, it's about $1,000 for one of these credentials. And it's career focused. So this solves a lot of problems that we face today. Outcomes are good. We did a survey of our learners who had completed credentials like the MicroMasters programs or professional certificate programs. And our survey results show that 91% of the people who earned these credentials were already seeing career advancements in their workplace. Whether it's a promotion, whether it's a pay raise or a new job, 91% were seeing career advancements because of these credentials. And you can teach all kinds of programs. We have topics in data science, which is really hot, computer science, AI, of course, machine learning, marketing, IoT, communications. You can teach all of this stuff. And you can get MicroMasters or certificates in these completely online from top institutions. What is also important to keep in mind is that even as we look at these things, let's not get carried away that this is all about STEM or that this is all about what I call the hard skills like AI and data science and so on. But the soft skills are also extremely, extremely important. And things like writing, communications, critical thinking, teamwork, extremely, extremely important. And you know, one of my favorite people, Mark Cuban, you know, I love to quote him, where he said, in 10 years, a liberal arts degree in philosophy will be worth more than your traditional programming degree. And you'll also see my little blog that I wrote, where data reveals why the soft skills, soft skills, seems a bit of a, you know, a pejorative use of the word soft, but really these soft skills are really power skills that humanities programs combined with the tech programs really is the way where the future is going to be. And with lifelong learning, if you're in the STEM field, engineer, make sure we pick up the soft skills. And similarly, if you are a humanities major, make sure that you also pick up some of the what I call the hard skills, like whether it's analytics or topics of that sort. So with that, let me pause, and I think we have time for questions. So love to take any questions from this group. Thank you. Yes.
Can you stack those micro-credentials to get a degree? And if so, is that degree awarded by MIT, Harvard, combination? How does that work?
Great question. We need to get you into product design at edX. So absolutely. So once you make things modular, all kinds of cool things happen. It's like you're playing with Lego blocks. And just imagine if I gave you a bunch of Legos, red, green, blue, that fit in all kinds of various ways. You can just dream about what is possible, and you'll be shocked. We're already doing those things. I'll give you one example. Talk about stacking. So MicroMasters stack. So each of the MicroMasters programs on edX stack into some master's degree. So for example, if you complete the AI MicroMasters program on edX from Columbia, you can get a MicroMasters and you can go. Okay? But if you want to do a master's and you apply to Columbia and you get in, it'll count towards 30% of the credit and tuition towards your master's degree. So yes, you can stack these programs towards full degrees. So it's like buying an option. Should you want buying an option on a stock that you may want to buy later? It's exactly like that. You can do more. You can share. So the example I gave earlier is this amazingly innovative program that ASU and MIT are doing on edX, which is we have a MicroMasters in supply chain management from MIT. And we now have a one-year, we have a master's, online master's in supply chain from Arizona State University. However, that master's on edX stacks on top of the MicroMasters program from MIT. So you complete the MicroMasters from MIT, and then you roll over and you get into your, if you want to, get into a master's degree from ASU on edX. And so ASU builds the complementary courses, not a repeat of the old courses. So just imagine what education might look like in the future, where we can sharing across institutions. In fact, we can also share internationally. So we work with the IT University in Pakistan. Okay, this is really, really cool. Talk about Legos. So they had a computer science degree, a one-year computer science degree. And they wanted to launch a data science degree. And you all know how hard it is to hire data science professionals, let alone teachers. So what they did was they teach 6 courses in computer science. And then they adopt a data science MicroMasters on edX from University of California, San Diego. And so their students take 6 campus courses, completely on campus. And then they take 4 courses from the MicroMasters in data science on edX, fully 100% online, and they give them a master's in data science. So it's edX inside. So now you can see how education becomes Lego-like, and countries around the world will start sharing. And why does every university, whether it's in Pakistan or Africa or India, why does every university has to replicate this? Focus on what you're good at, or focus on something and share, and sort of bring the network effect into education, into the sharing economy. And so I love that question. Any other questions or thoughts? Yes.
Thank you for your thoughts. Obviously, work-based learning to complement academic learning is very important and it's kind of the extension of the applied notion that you introduced earlier. Do you have any thoughts on the state of affairs relative to the tracking and verification of work-based learning in an operating environment? So the sort of the LMS for the work-based learning component of the education experience and all the connectivity that is required, verification, authentication, empowering those who supervise the people who are doing the work-based learning, et cetera. And how does that part of the delivery value chain fit into the bigger, longer-term plan?
So clearly you have to, you have to get all the plumbing. How does an employer know that my people are learning? How do they know what the outcomes are? As a manager, I want to learn. I want to know what is my ROI for having my employees doing this kind of learning. Hey, I have an LMS or have some kind of a discovery system or an HR system already, whether it's success factors or whatever. And how do things plug into that? So there are all of these issues. And I think MOOC-based learning, online learning is making a lot of progress there. So what we've done, for instance, is we integrate with all the major HR systems, so that employees at a company can discover the kind of content we have on their HR systems. We partner with the companies. And then the HR system might say, okay, hey, you need this skill, go take this course. And so they are directed to edX to take that course. And as they come, you have to get, you have to worry about privacy, and you get their permission as part of that plumbing pathway. You get their permission to share data with their employer. If they don't give permission, then you don't. If they give permission, then you share the data back. You have to build dashboards so that the employer can take a look at how my employees are doing. What did they learn last? What did they do last? What's their progress? And so they can really measure and find out how the learners are doing. And frankly, what many employers are telling us is that they're actually now able to see much better measurements of how people are doing than in the past, where all they could do was surveys. There were no digital tools to do these things. But as learning goes digital, we can actually measure things and provide analytics. This is really bringing big data to education and doing to education and evolving education in much the same way that medicine or transportation has evolved.
Our next question right over here.
I wanted to go back to the research you cited from Gabrielli and Okano in the Integrated Learning Initiative about video and active learning. And just what's your thoughts on sort of active learning in a workplace environment where, from a wide variety of areas that are very difficult to attack, something like sexual harassment. How do we think about something like that in the context of getting away from the old ways of learning to active learning, and how do we actually sort of integrate that now?
A fantastic question, and I have a personal. I remember, many companies, we kind of go through a modular training in ethics in the workplace and things like that. And in our own organization, we do that for accessibility, we do that for sexual harassment, the behavior, all kinds of stuff. So as part of that, I was actually going through a course myself, an online course. And as I was going through it, I'm saying, oh my God, this really, really sucks. It wasn't on edX, but and I was thinking to myself, so wouldn't it be cool if I could watch a video, for example. First of all, there were no videos. Okay, they're all text-based, long, boring pieces of text. Some imagery, but a lot of text. Short videos, maybe show a couple of examples of behaviors, get some actors and do some cool stuff. And then maybe ask a question, come up with a case and ask you a question and say, hey, role play, what do you think? How would you have? So it seems like there's such an opportunity for active learning, and it completely missed it. And so I think that would be a way to emotionally tap into people and get them to really get it. And so I completely think that active learning would apply to a lot of these programs as well.
We have our last question right here.
Hi, Anant. Kemi Jonah from Northeastern. I just wanted to follow up. I think that was a great question. And you've been talking about active learning, and I think, topics like sexual harassment and others, I think, bring it to life. Right next door, we've had leading figures like Seymour Papworth, his students, Mitch Resnick and others,
working on active learning for quite a long time. You know, my understanding is when they say active learning, it doesn't mean sort of spacing multiple choice tests with videos, right? And that seems to be the dominant model here.
No, go ahead.
Can you expand a little bit on how the edX team is thinking about expanding the toolbox of active learning beyond the kind of things that I think we're all familiar with, especially to the extent that sexual harassment being a great example, I think we all recognize that there's a big sort of external validity issue between saying that you know something because you took a quiz on it and then applying it in the real world in a real context.
It's a great question, and I think you know, it's very unfortunate, but a lot of people have a much older impression of online learning. And I want to promise you, today's online learning is not our grandfather's online learning. It is not. It is not about videos and multiple choice. In fact, when the edX platform was first launched, we built it from the ground up 7 years ago. We had no multiple choice on the platform. And I remember, you know, at a talk, a journalist asked me, yeah, but it's all multiple choice. I said, we don't have multiple choice on our platform. Now, it turned out that a year later, many professors said, look, I really want a multiple choice type, and kicking and screaming, we built the multiple choice type later. So we have 54 assessment types on edX. And you know, gamifications, labs, virtual labs, simulations. A company has built in virtual reality labs that some people are using. There's drag and drop. There's, we support the case study method that business schools and social scientists really love. And so there's so many assessment types that you can actually, so I teach a circuits course, 3 circuits courses on edX, and there, my colleagues at MIT built a circuits lab where you get a breadboard, you get components, and you're building circuits and measuring and seeing waveforms, and you're listening to music. And frankly, that experience in my mind is better than the experience I give my students on campus at MIT. So here they're able to listen to music, and they can do the same experiment 17 different ways at 3 a.m. in the night. We don't let them in the lab at 3 a.m. at night. So I think that is active learning, where you learn something, and then you apply it. And the application can be in any form, sometimes multiple choice, but there's so many other ways of applying knowledge that, and to me, that is active learning. Okay, thank you all.